All right, everybody. I'm going to do a quick video here on feeding in the late fall. Feeding in the late fall is a little different than the rest of the year when you do supplemental. I know I showed you before that we did some supplemental external feeding where we put the sugar syrup, make a huge quantity, put it in a barrel, and the bees take off, or a 5-gallon bucket, and the bees take off and use it. We are end of October here in coastal Maryland. Our frost date is first frost date is the historical average is 11/15, November 15, and that means that we're about right from this point right now. We're about 17 or 18 days away from the historical average for the first frost, and we are already into the space where we've had frosts in the past, record years, that sort of thing. I think the earliest frost is around October 20 or 21, so that's about a week ago. What happens when those temperatures start getting that cold, we can't external feed anymore because the bees won't take that syrup in. That syrup, if they try to take that syrup in from the outside and it's below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it chills the bees' bodies, and they can't fly. They can't, they can't do their thing. It's like, I guess, like us getting hypothermia. And so what happens is sometimes you have those days that they shoot up and it's like, oh, it's 65 degrees today. But you've had a barrel sitting there for 2 or 3 days when it was 40. Well, that barrel doesn't just immediately heat up. So we can't external feed. That's the bottom line. So I have two options that I do for internal feeding. The first one is mason jars. We're going to take a mason jar. This mason jar by volume was filled up 2/3 of the way with simple table sugar, Walmart Great Value. I think they make that sugar out of beets. The bees don't care. To them, sugar's sugar. They'll eat dropped fruit. They'll go to anything. So that's not an issue. So it's 2/3 with water, 1/3, 2/3 with sugar, 1/3 with water. That gives you a 2-to-1 by volume ratio. I do not measure things. I eyeball it. It's a bee. They take lots and lots of different concentrations of sugar. The idea here, though, is with it being late fall, you want it as concentrated as possible, number one, so the bee gets as most bang for her buck when she comes back to the hive. But the second is that reduces the amount of moisture coming into the hive that they have to later fan and dehydrate. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully we're rolling. So we have two incredibly difficult implements here. We have a mason jar with an old lid that I've reused, a screw, and a hammer. And what we're going to do here is we're going to just tap a hole. You always tap them from the outside in because the little piece of sharp metal that sticks out after you punch the hole, if the bee drags her body across that, it will cut her open and it will kill her, actually. It is a spot. It introduces a possible disease or bacteria, but also it affects her ability to retain moisture because it has punctured her exoskeleton. All right, we've done a bunch. They're small. Hopefully they're big enough. Yeah, I can see through them. Okay, so hopefully you can see them. So we're going to do this, and in a second, we're going to put them in the hive. I'll be right back to you. All right, so we've got a hive here that it's doing pretty good, but it could use a little help, and so we're going to do an internal feeding on it. This is not the hive that we normally look at. This is not the hive we normally are in. Oh, we definitely got some beetle issues up here. Let's kill them. All right, this hive has been struggling a bit. This is one of my other ones. Is not one you've seen, not one you've had, but they do still seem to be doing pretty good. I've got the entrance closed off so we don't have a lot of robbing or anything going on. And I showed this before, but we're going to show it one more time. So what we're going to do, is we're going to take the inside cover and we're going to go ahead and drop it on here like this. What we're going to do is we're going to take this box. This is an empty deep frame box. I showed this in a short, I think, a couple weeks ago, but we're going to do it one more time. Sorry if my big hat's in the way. Now we've got a chamber here for the bees to feed in. And I've got 2 sticks here. Just cut them on my table saw from, you know, probably about 1 inch thick. And I'm going to set those on either side of this hole. And we're going to take this, so then we got the jar, got the holes, right? We're going to turn it upside down. Now a little spills out, but you see, it forms a vacuum. And then we're going to set that right here. And then we've got the other one, again, same deal. And I don't turn it out over the hole, maybe let a little sprinkle, but I don't want to soak the bees. But I do turn it out inside the box, because the bees are going to climb up in here. And when they do, they're going to find all that. So they can get all that, they'll clean all that up. Just like my short video on them cleaning up the honey, they'll clean all that syrup up, and we're good to go. So we put the lid on. Those bees will be done with that within 2 or 3 days. That's a ½ gallon of liquid, and 2/3 of it is ½ gallon of syrup, but 2/3 of it is sugar, and we're all set to go. All right, so our next form of feeding is by using an internal feeding shim. So this shim I made last year. It has some issues. That's why I'm not using it currently. But it also has some good things. So you can see I didn't quite clean out all the comb and everything. It was not perfectly level. One of the things I did in an effort to try to make a seam was I used weather stripping. I put weather stripping all around the bottom. Hopefully you can see that. If you are a new beekeeper and you think weather stripping will help seal the cracks in your hive, do not do it. The problem is the weather stripping starts peeling off. You get gaps and holes from where there's some parts have weather stripping and other parts don't have weather stripping. And suddenly you've actually introduced more holes than you have sealed spots. So weather stripping, not a good thing. The other thing I did wrong with this is see this right here? I attached this metal frame to the bottom edge of this. That's a no-go. This edge right here needs to be able to sit flush on the one below it. You don't want to introduce something even as small as that piece of hardware screen. Even as small as that piece of hardware screen, you do not want to introduce that and have it create a gap. And so by doing that, it did not work well. What I should have done was cut the screen to fit, and then folded it up and attached it on the inside. I actually have another video coming out about blanket shims, or it may have already come out. I don't know which one's going to come out first. That's the way you do it. By attaching the screen to the, folding it up, stapling it from the inside, now you are allowing the 2 metal seams to sit flush, and that is good for the bees because it's easier for them to propolis. The one good thing I did do is I saw from another beekeeper. So this one actually has an entrance hole on it. It can be used for an upper entrance, but inside we create this block so the bees go in the entrance and then they're going to go straight down into the hive. This block acts as a nice baffle that if you're in a very super windy area, this baffle will keep that wind from blowing in and blowing across the top of the bees and possibly chilling them. In the corners here, these were simply for support. I've found that I really don't need them. They don't seem to be necessary. But in the future, when I do upper entrances, make upper entrances shims, if I'm going to continue to use them, I'm definitely going to incorporate this baffle. This is simply 2 small pieces of board cut with a 45-degree angle on each, and then you put them together and they're good to go. 45 degree and 45 degrees, 90 degree, and that makes a left turn or a right turn depending on which way you're going. So what are we going to do with this? So with a shim like this, we would lay it on the top of the hive directly above the top box containing brood or resources. We have 1/2 inch hardware screen. A bee can easily climb through that, no issues. And these are sugar fondant. So these are made by simply mixing sugar with water, and you just keep slowly adding the water. You don't want to add too much water too fast because you can't take it out once you've put it in there. So you add a little water, you stir. You add a little water, you stir. And what happens is the sugar will almost get to be the consistency of sand, like a wet sand. And once that happens, for me, I have an old set of muffin tins that my wife no longer uses and granted to me with the promise that I wouldn't use any of her good muffin tins. And we make these bricks. These are little bricks of sugar. These can be fed any time of the year, but especially during the winter, because during the winter, they just can't, as I said before, they can't take that fluid. It'll get to the point where it's too cold for them to even take syrup that's inside the hive. And in that case, this is sugar fondant. I do add wintergreen oil and peppermint oil. Those seem to be shown to help against winter fungal infections in the hive, or any kind of, it's a wet, damp interior, any sort of fungal growth, that kind of stuff. So we put those, you drop them right inside. The bees will climb all over them and eat them as they need them. This is a type of what a lot of people call rescue feeding, where the bees have literally drained their resources and they're starving. Most often this happens in late February, early March, when the entire winter season has gone along. The bees have used their resources, and before the flowers actually start blooming in earnest, the bees run out of food, and that's when it's a real danger of them starving. So you drop these in here. I got 2 just to show you. I would probably put 6 or 7 in there. That way they have enough. And if I thought the hive was having trouble, that way they have enough. And then I don't have to keep opening the hive if I just drop them in 1 or 2 at a time. And they're good to go. I don't like leaving them if the hive's not having an issue. Some people might think, oh, just put it on every hive. Well, the problem is it is sugar, and you can get mold and growth on it if the bees aren't eating it, and then that introduces a issue of a whole nother issue and a whole nother problem. So those are 2 methods. This is for like hard winter. This is for late fall or early spring, when the bees are heating up the inside of the hive, but yet the air outside is still cold. So that's 2 methods, and we're done here. And these, like I said, won't go on today. They'll go on if needed later. And this is Dave. I hope you stayed. I appreciate you being here. Like, share, and subscribe if you find this content useful. And stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.